Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the October Historic Preservation Commission meeting, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Taylor Fudge. I'm the chair of the Historic Preservation Commission. As usual, we do have a full agenda, and it's my goal to get everybody out of here early, so be thorough, but also be mindful of your time. As a reminder, please limit individual conversations during this meeting. This will ensure that commission members and applicants can hear each other. Please remain quiet until you're called upon, and when you do speak, please state your name and address up here at the podium for our records. Before the commission votes on each item, we will ask if any members of the public wish to speak. Anyone speaking will be given 3 minutes to relay information to the commission members. If we have to stop this meeting for any reason and we're unable to continue, all remaining items will be moved to the next regularly scheduled Historic Preservation Commission meeting, which will take place on Wednesday, November 2nd at 2 p.m. right here in council chambers. The agenda and documents for today's meeting are located on the PrimeGov website. If you're following along, select agenda on the right-hand side of the Historic Preservation Commission meeting to see the items that are being discussed. Written comments received more than 24 hours before today's meeting are posted online and were shared with commission members. And at this point, no new materials may not be shared with the commission. So if you brought materials with you today, we would ask that you please keep those at your seat, as we cannot accept and review. Desiree, can you please call roll?
Commissioner Fudge.
Present.
Commissioner Ryman Phillip. Commissioner Corbin. Commissioner Gaines.
Present.
Commissioner Jordan.
Present.
Commissioner Meacham. Commissioner Milner. Commissioner Poore.
Present.
Commissioner Ramey.
Present.
Perfect. Procedures for today's meeting were noted in the agenda. For the sake of time, I'll ask anyone that's unfamiliar with this process, please refer to that section. There are 2 items that we do like to note specifically regarding this process, and they involve certificates of appropriateness and appeals. Regarding certificates of appropriateness, after an application is approved and the 10-day protest period has expired, the Historic Preservation Officer will mail the certificate of appropriateness to the applicant. City construction permits cannot be issued until the CA is issued. Please contact HP staff for final design review inspection or to withdraw items that will not be completed. Regarding appeals to the Board of Adjustments, any person aggrieved by a decision granting or denying a CA may appeal to the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustments. All appeals shall be made within 10 days of the commission decision by filing a written notice of appeal with the clerk of the Board of Adjustments. We'll move on to item number 2. Katie, any news from the Office of the Historic Preservation Officer?
My only item is to welcome Daryl Calloway. He's a new assistant planner in current planning and urban design. He'll be helping with HP cases as well as other design review districts and just anything and everything we throw at him. So happy to have him. He's been here just a couple of weeks now.
Awesome. Welcome, Daryl. Glad you're here. Let's see, item number 3, the acceptance of the minutes. Have you all had a chance to review minutes from the September 7th meeting? And do we have any questions or perhaps a motion to accept or modify?
I will make a motion to, I will make a motion to, oh, gosh. It's been a long week, guys, but I will make a motion to approve the minutes from the September meeting.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Remy. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay.
Commissioner Gaines, have you?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. That motion is passed unanimously. Well, no, 5-1. I'm sorry. Commissioner Poore abstained. Anything from code enforcement?
Nothing specific to report from code enforcement. As always, if you see anything in the code enforcement report that is attached in your packet each month, feel free to reach out to staff or to the Action Center for more information on those.
Thank you, Katie. Any continuance announcements or requests?
So we do have one new request for continuance. It's item Hpca 22-00114. They've requested to be continued to December 7th. That is D2 on the agenda.
Do we need a motion to continue that?
Yes, we need a motion and a second.
Do we have a motion?
We've got a motion down here.
I'll second that motion.
Moved by Commissioner Gaines, second by Commissioner Poore. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov or verbally. Desiree, that was actually seconded by Commissioner Poore. I don't know if we need to change that. Poore? Perfect. That continuance was passed unanimously. We'll move that to the December 7th meeting. Katie, anything on the public hearing section?
Nothing under dilapidated structures, nothing under National Register nominations. Then we have 3 items on the consent docket.
Okay. Do we have any questions, concerns from the commission on the items on the consent docket, or do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent docket.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Poore, second by Commissioner Remy. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, if you were on the consent docket, your project is approved. That passed unanimously. You're free to stick around for the remainder of the meeting or head out. And we will move on to item number, are you sure you don't want to stay? We'll move on to item number D, cases for individual consideration. We've got 8 on the docket with that one that we're going to continue. We'll start off with number 1, HPCA 22-00068 at 626 Northwest 28th Street.
This is located in Paseo, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Tammy Nyhart, TRN Enterprises, LLC for Andrew Black, Dre Barrick, LLC for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace non-historic windows, elective. This is the 3rd time the commission has seen this application. It is one where replacement of the windows is potentially approvable, but we haven't been able to get adequate documentation of replacement windows from the applicant, the replacement windows themselves that would be installed. So we have recommended a denial without prejudice that would allow them to reapply at any time when they're ready to move forward with that.
Perfect. Is the applicant present? Any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Okay, any questions from commissioners? I would support a denial without prejudice on this one.
I'll make a motion to deny without prejudice HPCA 22-00068.
I'll second that.
Moved by Commissioner Poore, second by Commissioner Jordan. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. Desiree, I'm not seeing anything on my screen. Is anybody else seeing the buttons?
I voted.
I did.
Okay. I will vote in support of the denial without prejudice. Probably not. There it is. Whoops. Okay. Let's see. That was passed unanimously. We'll move on to item number 3, HPCA 22-00117 at 612 Northwest 41st Street.
This is located in Crown Heights, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Bob Sign Construction for Tim Ferris for certificate of appropriateness to 2, construct garage, elective, and 3, install paving, elective. This application was heard by the commission last month and continued with some suggested revisions to the design. The applicant has come back with a revised roof form incorporating the clipped gable from the historic garage, 1.5-story garage structure. We have recommended approval with conditions. The conditions include going from 1 garage door to 2 doors, which is what the guidelines encourage. Documentation of all building materials or some things that were not specified in the submittal, and then specifically vents that are proposed as a PVC product to be changed to a wood vent.
Perfect. Thank you. Can you state your name and address, please?
I'm representing Mr. Ferris at 612 Northwest.
Perfect. Are you comfortable?
I've read the application, and the only thing we have is that we were still need to talk about a double garage door, which, in our opinion, it had a single garage door when the structure's built, And then last month, you approved an 18-foot garage door at the site next door. So we're asking for the same request that you granted
Sure.
each month.
How about the other things, the material documentation and the wood versus PVC? You guys comfortable with those changes?
You mean on the, yes, we're fine for all those changes.
Perfect. Any questions, concerns with single door versus double?
I think, given the points he's brought up, I think it's a little hard to support enforcing double doors.
And I think that the customer's looking at a single door that has a double door look. So that would fit in with the,
Does staff have a comment on the type of door they are looking at?
Personally, I would love to see 2 doors on there. I'm not necessarily opposed to a single door. I would just prefer the double doors because I think it is a little more appropriate. But the fact that there's others that are,
Well, and the fact that the existing structure has a single.
So yes, the existing building has a single 2-car width garage door. I will say that in the past, we have had some proposals to put in a single door designed to look like 2 doors, and that often is not very effective, and it's sometimes preferable to just go with the single door that looks like a normal garage door and not try to have some sort of faux center post. I think the door that is selected is just in the packet that the applicant had previously provided is just a typical paneled door with the longer horizontal panels. And I think if the commission is comfortable with 1 door, I think that design is appropriate.
I think based off the modifications that the applicant has made previously from the last conversation to now, and I'm comfortable with it.
How do you all feel about the proposed change in garage door to go to a single door that just looks as a single door?
you mean, a single door that looks like a double door?
No,
No.
is that, you were saying that you would prefer to see a single door that looks like a single
That's
door,
fine.
correct?
That's fine with us.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's what's in the packet.
Yeah.
Oh,
I would concur with Katie. I wouldn't recommend a faux double door. If it's a single door, look like a single door.
Do we have any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Do we have a motion?
I will make a motion to, let's see where I'm at. Approve HPCA-22-00117, items 2 and 3 with the agreed upon conditions with the exception of the addition of 2 single car garage, but garage door to still be approved by staff.
Do we have a second? I'm sorry.
I'm not sure that I'm tracking
So-
that.
Say that
Sorry,
again.
so in the conditions, it's stating that she wants 2 single car width garage doors. But
Right.
we've all just given the go-ahead, so I don't want to
For
make a
one
motion to
single-
approve with the conditions in this
With the
packet.
except, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought you were reinforcing that.
Yes,
Exception.
no, I'm sorry. It's been a long week for me.
Just wanted to make sure we were clear on what we were.
No, just with the removal, well, it's not really a removal, it's with the adaptation of condition number 1, that the applicant will still go to staff to get the agreed upon garage door approved.
Okay.
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan, second by Commissioner Remy. All in favor, please vote in prime gov.
I will recuse myself for this next one. We do have a quorum.
Yep.
Yes. Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, that was passed unanimously. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Katie and Angela for all their help on this project.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, let's see. Commissioner Ryman Phillip will be recusing himself from this particular item, but we are on item number 4, HPCA 22-00123 at 108 Northwest 15th Street.
This is in Heritage Hills East, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Klaus Ryman Phillip for Zach Dean Duty for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace concrete steps and walkway elective, 2, install sidewalk elective, 3, replace fence elective, 4, install spiral staircase and concrete and tree slab and platform at rear of building elective, 5, replace windows elective, 6, replace front balcony elective, 7, replace front door and side lights, 8, repair, replace, and relocate back doors, and 9, repair brick to match existing, all elective. This is a renovation rehab of a small apartment building in Heritage Hills East, and most everything is intended to be an in-kind repair or replacement. They are replacing what is pretty clearly a non-historic front balcony entryway, and looking to a very similar building across the street for some, as a design reference for a more historically appropriate balcony. Staff has recommended approval with conditions for all items except window replacement, and conditions are largely addressing more specificity on materials and design details. One condition that did request or recommend a more significant change is that the public sidewalk be set back from the curb to align with sidewalks to the west down the block. And that isn't something that staff's discussed with the applicant to this point, so that'll need to be reviewed. And then we did recommend continuance on the windows. We did not have full window, replacement window documentation, and the commission may or may not feel like you have complete documentation on the condition of the existing windows based on what's been provided.
Okay. Is the applicant present?
Good afternoon. Klaus Robin Phillip, 2801 North Hudson. Let me sign in real quick. All right, so yeah, we are, as Katie described, pretty much, it's a fourplex that has been vacant for, I think, close to maybe 10 years. I think the previous owner used it for construction storage. And as you can tell from some of the images, if you've reviewed the packet, it's in pretty poor condition. So Zach and Ian, who are here as well, have purchased the property and want to basically just restore it back to what it was, so they can lease it out. And all in all, there's a lot of items. Really, we're just trying to bring it back to its original condition. There's a few images in the packet of a property across the street that's almost, it's very similar to this property. And really, that's kind of the same approach. Restore the entry, restore some of the paving. And then the big item, as well as the windows, they're in really rough condition, as you can tell. There are plants growing through them, really rotted frames and sills and sashes. So the big thing is really the window replacement. As Katie mentioned, we're still working on getting some documentation, but really we want to replace in kind. One thing that I was going to bring up to kind of get some feedback on, and I actually don't know if this has been done in the past or not, but the current window configuration is a 5/1, so the top window, here's a good image of it. The top window is broken up into 5 panes on the top and then a single on the bottom. And it is sometimes kind of difficult to find a window that complies, with the full divided lights, because we don't want to do any kind of, simulated divided lights or anything like that. So is there a precedent for replacing it with just like a 1/1 because it isn't a historic window, or is there a strong precedent to replace it with a 5/1? Do you have any comments on that, or?
Well, I'll speak to, in the past, when we know what the historic window configuration is, the requirement has been to go back with that same window configuration. Sometimes we have buildings where windows have been replaced over time, and there's a mixture of different window pane configurations. I think I saw some on the side here that are currently 1/1. If we have reason to believe that maybe secondary windows, smaller windows that are in a bathroom, something like that would have been 1/1, then that might be a place where it doesn't have to go back with that 5/1 pattern. But generally, when we can tell that the main windows, the more visible windows, had that pattern pretty uniformly throughout the building, that would be the requirement according to what the guidelines say.
Okay, no, that makes sense. The big issue for us is really to be able to replace them because they're not really salvageable in their current condition. And then finally, you mentioned the sidewalk, where I think we're totally fine to move that sidewalk. The reason I had it where it was located on the site plan is because if you look just to the, what is that, east of this building, the sidewalk is like right behind the curb, and then it kicks over on the other side of the drive to where you have like a 5-foot or 4-foot strip between the sidewalk and the street. So I kind of, because you have the slope there, I figured it might be, you know, a little bit close to where that sloped up to have the sidewalk, but I think there's room, you know, and I'm sure we're happy to make that change. I don't think that's anything.
Would that require you to build a retaining wall there?
I don't think so. I think we have roughly 10 feet from the back of the curb to where it really starts to slope. And I can confirm that, but I think we wouldn't have to. I just think I think that slope would start pretty close to where that sidewalk is, but I don't think we need a retaining wall necessarily. Is that something that would be administratively approvable if we revised the site plan, do you think?
So
or-
I think that could just be a condition of approval, that you
Okay.
revise the site plan and submit to staff. And then obviously, if you get out there and it can't be built without having to make more significant changes and put in a retaining wall or something like that, we could bring that, you know, kind of reconsider that.
Sounds good. And then as far as the windows, I know we're still lacking some documentation on the exact windows, but should we find a window that matches the guidelines? So basically, if we found a window that was 5/1, true divided light, to replace that with, do you think that would be something that staff would be comfortable approving, or would you want us to come back if that was something that?
If that's the direction from the commission, I think that submittal of window documentation of 5/1 windows that meet the guidelines is something staff can incorporate into the CA. That could be a condition.
I think I certainly would like to see the 5/1 if possible.
This is where I struggle because I don't agree with the guidelines.
With a what?
I don't agree with the guidelines on this
Oh,
issue. I think a true divided light is less historic looking from the street than a simulated divided light. And I think if you're going to a double pane glazed unit, my opinion is the simulated divided light maintains the character, the historic character from the public right of way better than a true divided light, in my opinion. So it's hard for me to steer you away from that, but I know it conflicts with the guidelines.
Staff talked about that with the applicant, and we talked about coming forward with documentation for both options, because we have had that experience with certain windows in the past where a thermal pane, true divided light product, when you have really small panes or really narrow panes, it started to distort the proportions of the window. Felt like that might be something that they'd want to present a comparison to the commission. So if you all continued that, if we could, you know, get the documentation of what a true divided light product would look like and what a simulated divided light product would look like, that might help with that conversation.
Yeah, the muttons just get really heavy and it feels chunky when you go to true divided light with a double pane.
So just to clarify what you're saying, so you're still saying 5/1, but instead of doing the true divided light, because the frame, it just gets a little bit chunkier than it historically would have been, to go with the simulated divided light, just because visually from the street it would look more accurate.
It sounds like staff is suggesting providing both as a comparison.
Okay.
And perhaps there's an argument to be made for a special exception if you can make the case that from the public right of way, the simulated divided light with the specifications that its spacer is the same color and the same width, and it has the aesthetic look, so you don't have the not the chrome stripe, but for staff to consider. But I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but
I think that's great. I think that would be good to see from a continuance perspective. Nice to see both.
Is a simulated divided light like a stick-on, like mutton?
simulated divided light has a surface, so it's one pane of glass. It has surface applied muttons on both sides, but then it has an integral gasket between the glazing that needs to be the same color as the muttons. So it really, so done poorly, they don't put the gasket in and then you can see, or it's a different color and then you can see. But as long as it's done correctly.
Yeah, if you look closely, like if you really got up close and looked at it, you could see the glass continuing, but from a little bit of a distance, theoretically, with that centerpiece, it kind of looks solid. So.
And the guidelines allow simulated divided light windows on additions and on new construction, but they don't support them in a historic structure.
Yeah, so to me, the crux of this is if there's support that the windows are not salvageable and you're going to allow a double pane glazing unit, then I think that's where the argument's
Well, and it sounds like
there to be had.
Yeah, that's kind of I guess those are kind of the three options, is either, because, hopefully the commission agrees with us, but really salvaging the windows is not a realistic option. So it'd probably either be a simulated divided light to match the 5/1, a true divided light that matches the 5/1, or just a 1/1,
So it sounds like we need a continuance on that particular item for more documentation anyways. Can we have the continuance and bring those options back to look at? Does that sound right, or is that something staff could look at and approve?
Because this is discussing approving something that the guidelines wouldn't typically support, I think it really needs to come back to the commission and not be a staff call.
I'm assuming we can approve several items on here though and continue windows, and then we've also got some questions on the front door and side lights.
Yeah, I think we need to bring some additional documentation for that as well, but maybe that's something that staff could approve. It might be a little bit simpler to approve. We really just want to go with what's approvable on this, and we had a little bit of back and forth, and that would be a wood door. In this case, I think we'd like to do the full light in the door. I'm not sure. I'd like to get some feedback on that, maybe on what kind of a door would be approvable, but really, we'll put whatever door and side lights in, It'll definitely match the openings. We're not changing the opening size. The brick is still in pretty good condition in that entry, so really we're just replacing what's dilapidated, with a new door and window, or side light, rather.
So we have guidelines for administrative approval of doors. When the historic door is gone, we can administratively approve a door that meets the guidelines as far as the materials and that's compatible with the style of the building. So that is certainly something that could be either continued to work through on an administrative approval or approved with the condition that a door that meets the guidelines is submitted to staff. Either way, as long as the openings themselves are being maintained, then we can handle the door.
I would love to approve with with the condition that staff agrees on the door. So it sounds like we could potentially approve everything in the application with conditions, with the exception of the windows that just need more documentation. Does that sound right?
Yeah, and then I guess the sidewalk was a condition, I think, as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Can you please state your name and address for the record, too?
Randy Ice, 119 Northwest 19th Street, representing Heritage Hills. You have our comments. Our basic thing I think needs to be stated. The neighborhood went out and looked at the windows. We believe the majority are salvageable. They are not. They do not need to be removed. I own a fourplex almost identical to this on the 100 block of 20th Street. Every window is original, and now. Some of them I had to have rebuilt completely, when I first bought the place. But with good storm windows, they've been perfectly satisfactory. They are not an energy drain. Good storm windows are very common in the neighborhood. We believe the windows could be salvaged for much lower cost than replacement, and they just need to be glazed, cleaned up, painted, and if you want better energy efficiency, add storm windows. And that's what we've typically said for all the houses in our neighborhood. Window replacement is one of the things we really do fight against. And in this case, you saw some of the ones that are in the worst in the very back where they've been burglarized and vandalized. But look on the second floor. most of those are intact. Okay, they're not, the glass isn't even broken. Okay, so this building, we believe everything else, he's right, needs to be done, but the windows are what we want saved more than anything else. And actually, we went out and looked at the place, and I'd encourage you to go look at it between now and when you continue this. Everything else, I think, should be approved immediately. I think he's going to do a good job on the door and the front door and the balcony. The circular staircase in the back was a little unusual, but again, it's in the back. Okay. These windows are visible from the street, especially the ones in the front and the sides when you come down. And so we're trying to preserve that look as much as possible in the neighborhood.
Sure. What's below on the first floor? They're all boarded up. Is there anything behind those, or are the windows still there? What is behind that? Sorry.
There are windows behind them. There's one image in the packet where I pried some plywood off the backside to kind of show what that condition is. But they're virtually the same as the windows above. I think the owner just put some plywood on those. I mean, you can see that every single window on the first floor has plywood, and I think they just did that to keep people from breaking in easily. But I'll just make a quick comment too. I mean, just because the windows, like the window panes aren't broken necessarily, I mean, really the wood is in really bad condition. I mean, if you're inside, you know, you got Broadway on the other side there, and it's like, you might as well be standing outside, you know. I mean, they're really pretty poor condition. So I think if they were readily replaceable, I mean, that would definitely be our first option, you know, for sure. But they're really not, you know, so.
Okay.
Like I said, we're trying to do everything the right way on this project, so, you know, we're basically trying to restore it to its former glory, but it's just been dilapidated and vacant for so long.
Sure.
Well, it sounds like the windows are, maybe just need to come back, but anyway, but everything else seems kind of good to go. So you've gotten some good feedback from staff in the neighborhood to, you know, work within for the windows for next month? Well, unless you want the next month.
I think the window, we'll bring some options for those. But if we could get everything else approved, that'd be great. We could start work on some of the work items, and then the windows, you know, that wouldn't be the first thing we pull out anyways, probably, so.
So what we've been discussing is approving all items with the exception of 5 replace windows and 7 replace front door and side lights, and those 2 would be continued?
7 is approvable with agreed upon conditions with staff,
Okay,
because the opening's staying the same size.
okay.
Do we want to see
Number
additional
2.
documentation on windows?
Yeah, I think everybody is kind of saying bring the windows back next month.
Well, I guess I'm wondering additional documentation on the current dilapidation of the
Status.
window. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was going to comment on that. You know, I had somebody come out and look at restoring my windows to like pristine condition, and I'm wondering, like, I feel like there needs to be a vetted list of vendors that have done historic window preservation, because I mean, you mentioned, Mr. Ice, that it's cheaper to restore than replace, and man, based off the cost estimate that I just got, it doesn't seem very feasible. So, and I don't know if that's something that you guys have available, a list of people that, I mean, we could help direct people to come and get true quotes to restore windows, because based off my quote, it was not feasible, but I'm still going to work through that. So that was just a comment that I wanted to make, because it seems like this is going to be, it's a reoccurring concern of replace versus restore, and how do we make sure it's truly a feasible option to
And
restore.
whose expertise do we
Yeah.
rely on to say,
Yeah.
yeah, they are
Right.
unsalvageable?
Right.
When we briefly looked at that, but we didn't realize how poor the condition of the windows was, you know, when we, like I said, we really just want to restore it back to its original, you know, kind of condition, but that is a challenge for sure.
I would love to see just photo documentation of the current state of the windows at the next one, just at our next our next meeting, just to have for the record too.
Is there
That's
anything
possible.
specifically, so I provided kind of like a photo journal, I guess, kind of walking through, taking pictures up close of a lot of the.
Oh, maybe that's already in there.
Yeah,
So
maybe-
there's kind of representative images of window openings where there's no longer a window, of kind of window details, where there's damage. There's a full window that obviously has
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, zoom in.
plant life growing in through the window. And that, typically we ask for a true window survey that's every window in the building, condition of every window. This being as large a building as it is, Klaus was trying to give kind of a representative sample of what they are. But I think if there are questions about whether some or all windows are salvageable, that maybe between now and the next meeting, we do want a more comprehensive assessment of each window.
Let me just touch base with the owners real quick and make sure that everything is in line with their expectations.
Would we need to make the continuance motion separately?
Yes.
So in the meantime, maybe we could,
Sure. We have a motion on the continuance.
I'll move for approval of the items.
Okay.
So I'll move for approval of items 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, with the specific findings and conditions in the staff report, and on side item 7, that it meets the guidelines on item HPCA 22-00123. Did I say that right?
You mentioned 2, the sidewalk?
I believe so. I meant to, if I did not, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, and 9.
I wrote down 1 through 4 and 6 through 9 with the findings and conditions from the staff report, and that number 7, meet the guidelines. And then 2, the condition about moving the sidewalk is included in that.
Okay.
Yes.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Poor, second by Commissioner Jordan. Please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that item was passed unanimously. We will move to
Wait,
the
Thank you.
continuance.
yeah. So did you get some feedback from your,
Klaus, did you get feedback about the windows for a continuance? So close.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. We'll come back next month, however you got, if you want to continue it, and we'll
November
come back with a
2nd
few
is
different,
Sunday.
yes, as soon as possible. I think.
November 2nd is the next meeting, with October 11th being the deadline for documentation.
Yep.
Okay. Do we have a
I'll
continuance
move
motion?
for continuance on item 5 of HPCA 22-00123 to the November 2nd meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Poor, seconded by Commissioner Gaines. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov.
We have, oh, there we go. Gaines.
Commissioner Gaines. Okay, the continuance was also passed unanimously, and we will welcome Commissioner Ryman Phillip back to the Horseshoe.
All right, thank you.
We'll move on to item number 5, HPCA 22-00124 at 1011 Northwest 14th Street.
This is located in Heritage Hills, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Fallon Brooks Creative Home Design for Amelia and Riley Marquise for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct addition and back porch elective, and 2, relocate pool equipment elective. This is a very small addition on the rear of the structure, and then relocating pool equipment currently in that location of the proposed addition. Staff recommended approval with conditions that we get some additional detail on windows and doors, confirming that they meet applicable guidelines.
Okay. Are you comfortable with staff's recommendations and the additional documentation that they've requested?
Yeah, it's always windows and doors with me, so I put the wrong ones in there.
I mean, looks pretty simple. Pool equipment's going to the rear. I think that's great. If we had the documentation on the doors and windows, that's even better. Any other questions from commissioners on this particular item? Any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Do we have a motion?
I will motion to approve items 1 and 2 of HPCA where did it go? HPCA 22-00124 with the specific findings and agreed upon conditions noted in the staff report.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan, second by Commissioner Poore. All in favor, please vote in prime gov.
All right, thank you.
It's passed. Thank you. We are moving along today. Item number 6, HPCA 22-00128 at 719 Northwest 16th Street.
This is located in Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Austin Hayes for certificate of appropriateness to 1, install shutters elective. This is a house that currently has shutters on it that staff believes may be replacements for previous shutters. The existing shutters, I think, are a synthetic material, so they're clearly not the original material, the original shutter. And so staff supports the, in concept, replacement of the shutters with new shutters, but the proposed design is a more rustic look with the sliding kind of barn door style than would be typical for this neighborhood and for this style of house. So we did recommend a continuance just to address a shutter design more appropriate to this property.
Is the applicant present? They are not. Any citizens wish to be heard on this particular project? There does not appear to be. I think the shutters are, I think replacing the shutters is the right thing to do. I don't think replacing them with this design is necessarily what we want to see. I would push for a continuance to let the applicant come back with a better design, but I would probably, you know, if this is what they wanted to have, I would probably deny with prejudice.
Agree. I do have a question for staff. Do we have any documentation showing that this home ever originally had shutters, or are these like a 1980s edition? I mean, it's, well,
2003.
yeah, that's not, I mean, they're not, the shutters represented in the photo are not proportional to the windows. They wouldn't be working shutters, which would be the only instance in which something originally did have shutters. So I just, well, I guess not the only, but the typical instance in which something had original functioning shutters. So I'm just curious if adding shutters is a denial in general, but I don't know.
I think because they're already there, they can replace them in kind, is that right?
So it's kind of a gray area in the guidelines because we typically don't approve shutters when they didn't already exist. Sometimes we've seen shutters that are clearly not historic and are a recent addition. And we've said it's just entirely not appropriate to go back to the shutters. A house like this would have never had shutters. I think in this instance, we felt like shutters would have potentially been appropriate on that style of house, just not this style of shutter. The ones that are there have been there, are documented to have been there for a long time, so staff thought that they were potentially, you know, an earlier replacement of something that would have been there before.
I'm not at all offended by having shutters on this house in general. I do agree with Taylor that I just was wondering if, you know.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I just was wondering if, you know, if it's provable that they weren't there to begin with, is the better path to just shut it down?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I would say the challenge for them, and probably, I don't want to speak for the, for anybody, but the challenge is going to be the location of that sconce and mailbox on the first floor. It prevents you from having shutters, which would indicate that it probably never did. I agree. I'm not offended by shutters, whether they were there or not there, but I think that that's the challenge, that they're trying to use the barn door style to get around that design issue.
No, that I would say that's a unique enough circumstance to change my opinion on the style.
Not mine.
Okay, I think we just need a continuance on this one.
Okay.
Do we have a motion?
Do you think continuance to the November 2nd meeting?
I would continue to December 7th so that we have time to work with them and to let them know that it's been continued since they're not present.
I'll make a motion to continue HPCA 22-00128 to the December 7th meeting.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Poore, second by Commissioner Remy. Please vote in prime gov. That continuance was passed unanimously. We move on to item number 7, HPCA 22-00130 at 424 Northwest 22nd Street.
This is located in Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Corbin Harris, Express Sunrooms of Oklahoma, for Ben Miller for a certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct screen sunroom. This is one where work has already been initiated, but the commission is to review that as if it had not yet occurred. Staff did recommend continuance. We were in need of a more accurate site plan and more accurate description of building materials to be used to confirm that they meet guidelines.
Perfect. Is the applicant present? Is there any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? None. We want to offer a continuance for the applicant.
I'll make a motion to continue HPCA 2200130 to the December 7th meeting.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Poore, second by Commissioner Remy. Please vote in PrimeGov. The continuance was passed unanimously. Moving on to item number 8, HPCA 2200136 at 825 Northwest 16th Street. And I believe we have another commissioner that needs, or the same commissioner that needs to recuse themselves. Okay.
So this is in Mesta Park, Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by Klaus Ryman Phillip, Architect PLLC, for Andrew Diaz for certificate of appropriateness to 1, remove 3 windows to install patio door, 2, remove 2 doors, patio and rear, 3, relocate 2 windows each into locations at patio and rear, 4, relocate 1 door from either patio or rear on north facade, 5, install patio door where windows are removed on the north, and 6, replace non-historic front door with new door elective. So lots of moving existing windows and doors around, primarily on the rear of the dwelling and replacing the front door. We recommended approval of most items, just kind of par for the course this meeting, some additional documentation needed on materials for windows and doors. Then I believe we recommended continuance for the front door because we didn't have good documentation of the existing or proposed door. Again, that is something that if the proposed door meets the guidelines, that could be approved with condition that it be submitted to staff rather than a continuance.
Okay. Do we have questions for the applicant on the approved item or the items that staff has recommended approval on? Anything of concern or of note on that?
I'd just like to add real quick, on the front door, there's really no consensus with owners on what that door could be. So I think we pretty much are going to drop that for now.
Okay.
And if we come back with decide on a door in the future, that might even be, I think you said it could be administratively approvable if it's.
Yes, replacement of a non-historic door with a new door that is wood and that meets the guidelines, is architecturally compatible, can be approved by staff. So we will mark item 6 as withdrawn.
Yeah.
Do we need to do anything, motion or anything like that? Okay, perfect.
And then apologies on some of the specifics on the windows and doors. It's been really tough getting window and door reps to respond in a timely manner. But yeah, essentially the interior layout is kind of strange, and we're trying to more or less maintain the number of openings and even more or less the location, but make the interior of the house way more functional. So that is what we're doing.
Any citizens that wish to be heard? None. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion for items 1 through 5 on HPCA 2200136
Do we have a second?
with the specific
Oh, I'm sorry.
findings and conditions. Sorry, I left that out.
It's 1 through 5, right? 6 is with.
Oh, sorry, 1 through 5.
With the specific findings? as
Findings and
noted?
conditions in the staff report.
Perfect. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Poore, second by Commissioner Jordan. Please vote in PrimeGov. Did everybody get a chance to vote?
I think she's got to abstain.
Commissioner
for-
Fudge?
Yay. Okay,
Appreciate it.
that item was passed unanimously. Welcome back, Commissioner Ryman Phillip, to the Horseshoe. All right, last item, number 9, HPCA 2200138 at 809 Northwest 22nd Street.
This is located in Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Holly Hunt, Sam Gresham Architecture for Sam Gresham, how many times can I say your name? Yes. For certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct 3 new two-story duplexes, elective, 2, expand new parking lots, elective, 3, install 2 new parking lots at alley, elective, 4, install 6-foot stockade fence, elective, and 5, request special exception for multifamily residential for Board of Adjustment. So this is a property with 3 existing multifamily structures, but they are zoned HP, they're in Mesta Park, so multifamily is not an allowed use. Multifamily is allowed as a special exception in HP, which requires a recommendation from the HP Commission to the Board of Adjustment. So in order to add additional multifamily structures, this has to get that special exception. So that's part of this before you, is to make that recommendation to Board of Adjustment, and then the rest of it is the actual certificate of appropriateness to construct the new buildings and to install the parking lot. Staff did recommend approval of the installation of the fence and construction of the building with conditions. I have to look back at what those conditions were. Holly's probably prepared to address whatever that was. And then recommended continuance on the parking. We were concerned that they were actually showing more parking spaces than they're required to provide, and that it was just adding a significant amount of paving to this site.
Perfect, thank you. Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Sure. Holly Hunt, 400 Northwest 23rd Street. So just a quick introduction. This is a bit of a unique property in the district, as it is historically multifamily. Sam purchased this property with always the intent to expand this lot. Another special, unique thing about this lot is there is just an enormous right-of-way along 22nd Street that we wanted to point out, especially when you look at the site plan. Even though we are covering, a little over that 50% ideal number, given that it's multifamily and we've got an existing 8 units, we're adding another 6, I believe. So these people are going to need to park. And I think it's always advantageous to have off-street parking available to tenants, so you don't just have tons of cars out front blocking this beautiful view and the vista along 22nd that currently exists. So that's our intent. Certainly, apparently there's 1 extra parking spot, so potential to maybe make a reduction of, 160 square feet or so. But I think providing parking in this case, we've done it in such a way that it's really minimally visible from the public right-of-way. And as far as drainage goes, steps will be taken to drain all the water toward the alleyway where storm drains are currently installed. We back onto an alley that is very new. The city has just repaved it, so it's a very nice, highly functional alleyway. It's currently being used for parking, off-street parking for all the commercial properties on 23rd Street. So again, a commonly used, very wide alleyway. And also the front yard, a lot of which is not represented in that coverage calculation due to that large right-of-way, is still permeable. And so from the street, there's an additional 20 some odd feet across the whole frontage that is still grass and will remain so in the proposal. Currently, as you can kind of see in these pictures, the existing building's tenants, they're just forced to kind of stack up along one side of the driveway, again, leaving them exposed from the right-of-way. We feel like our proposal, it seeks to achieve what the guidelines are really after, which is maintaining that street view and that vista as more residential. So very much care in preparing this design to maintain the historic fabric and that public right-of-way. We are thrilled that the staff has recommended approval, and we hope that those, and the condition, just so you know, was to face the finished side of the fence toward the alleyway, and that's no problem. That we can certainly meet that condition. But we hope that you'll see that this parking plan, it is well suited for this type of property. And even though it's maybe doesn't fit into the exact criteria. This is a special exception project, and therefore it has some certain needs that
Yeah.
will need to be met.
I mean, I certainly, from my perspective, I think the property in and of itself with the multiple different units is unique enough to potentially warrant an extra parking spot. I think the point that Holly made about the large front yard not being calculated, I think that's appropriate. So I certainly can support.
My question is just for staff, just so I know moving forward, because I concur with that. If it had been 23 spaces, would it have been recommended for approval versus the 24 that were requested?
You know, I think we would have probably put the parking on as a recommendation to continue no matter what, just because it is such a significant amount of paving. We don't see, you know, entire parking lots installed in backyards in Mesta Park a whole lot. So we just wanted to kind of bring that to the commission's attention and have that conversation about whether this much paving, this much parking was appropriate. Obviously, you're already going to Board of Adjustment, so there is the potential to ask for a variance and not have as much parking. But I think there's also the valid point of you want to address as many of the cars as you can and not have parking on the street, especially in this area. So,
Yeah, I mean, I'm never a fan of a lot of additional pavement, but I don't really know that there's a realistic reason not to allow this many spots.
Well, and I think a big part of that consideration is what impact does it have on the neighborhood at large? And here I would say it's as minimal as possible.
Pick your poison.
Are there any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Any other questions from commissioners on this particular project?
I'll make a motion. Make a motion to approve HPCA 22-00138 as specified by staff.
Moved by Commissioner Gaines. We have a second.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Jordan. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov.
Was that with conditions or just approved?
yeah, with the findings and conditions.
Yes.
Yeah. And then we do need a separate motion on the recommendation to Board of Adjustment for the special exception.
Do we have a motion on that one?
Move to a forward recommendation of approval for HPCA 22-138, number 5. Recommend approval for the Board of Adjustment.
Do we have a second? Moved by Commissioner Gaines, second by Commissioner Ryman Phillip. Please vote in PrimeGov.
Did we get the first motion?
Oh,
through?
it's still, yeah,
This first one's still,
still thinking. And I have to ask, are you Sam Gresham? Okay, I've seen your name a million times. He is, yes.
The man, the legend.
The man, the myth, the legend, right here. Okay, perfect. Okay, looks like that item passed unanimously. I'll move on to the recommendation. That was moved by Commissioner Gaines, second by Commissioner Ryman Phillip. Please vote in PrimeGov.
And then on this one, on the recommendation, he recommended both of those things. Commissioner Gaines on, do you have a copy of this? I just want to be sure, because when we're in the meeting tomorrow, Katie will be there, yes?
Maybe.
And so I want to be sure that they know what it was the commission recommended.
Yeah, 1 and 2.
1 and 2, okay.
Okay,
Yes.
that recommendation was approved as well. Thank you, guys. All right, that takes care of everything under cases for individual consideration. We'll move on to other business. Item number 7A, the 2023 schedule of meetings and workshops. I think we just need to approve that schedule. Have you all had a chance to look at it? And do you agree with it? And do we approve that?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the 2023 meeting schedule.
Do we have a second?
Second.
The 2023 meeting schedule was moved by Commissioner Poore, second by Commissioner Gaines. Please vote in PrimeGov.
It's the meeting schedule and the workshop schedule?
Meeting schedule and, I'm sorry, did I not say meeting and workshop?
As well as the workshop schedule.
Okay.
Second as well.
Okay. Moved by Commissioner Poore, second by Commissioner Gaines. Please vote in PrimeGov. 2023 meetings and workshops have been approved. We'll move on to item B, HPCA 22-00077, SPUD 01363 at 2415 North Robinson.
So we talked about this a little bit last month. This is the apartment building on the west side of Robinson that the commission approved at the September meeting. The commission also recommended approval of the SPUD several months ago. That document, even though parking was illustrated on their site plan, did not include provisions for parking, which makes them revert back to whatever the base zone requires. They had intended to request one parking space per dwelling unit. These are all one-bedroom units to reduce the number of parking spaces that are required. And so they need to do an administrative amendment to the SPUD, to the SPUD. That's something that comes to this body for a recommendation, and then that goes officially to the planning director, and the planning director can administratively amend SPUDs under certain circumstances. So we've recommended approval. Staff recommended a recommendation of approval for the amendment to the SPUD to address their parking.
Do we have any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? No. Okay. Any questions from commissioners on this? Or do we want a motion to recommend approval?
Do we need a motion since it was staff recommendation? I mean,
Yes, so the commission needs to, staff recommended that you provide a recommendation. Sorry, I said that strangely.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Moved by Commissioner.
HPCA 2277, SPUD 1363, recommendations from staff.
Moved by Commissioner Gaines. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Ryman Phillip. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that was passed unanimously as well. Looks like we are moving on to item number 8, communication reports. There were 12 items under administrative approvals. We had 1 withdrawal, no administrative closings. Anything from City Council's office? No. No? Anything from the Board of Adjustments?
Nothing to report.
Planning Commission?
Nope.
Rita, anything from the Municipal Councilor's office? Nothing. Okay. Our next meeting date, the next regularly scheduled meeting for the Historic Preservation Commission is Wednesday, November 2nd at 2 p.m. in the Municipal Building, City Council Chambers. New applications for this meeting were received October 4th. New information on projects continued from today's meeting to the upcoming meeting must be submitted to staff by 4 p.m. Tuesday, October 11th. The next regularly scheduled workshop for the Historic Preservation Commission is Wednesday, December 14th at 11:30 to 1:30 at 420 West Main Street, Suite 900. Do we have any items from commissioners that need to be relayed?
I'm just disappointed we couldn't get this done in another, 3 minutes earlier.
I'm trying my best.
Would have really been a record.
Any citizens that wish to be heard? There are none in the room, so none. We are adjourned. 3:03.